A lot of times people talk about the enlightenment about you or just being aware or whatever they're talking about. You got to live in the now. That rhetoric just bugs me, and yet it's hard because usually when people are saying it, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, you know, your heart's in the right place. But they dismiss it because, okay, here's the thing. First of all, well, this is how I think of it, rather. The first thing is an interval is excuse me, the moment is going to be an interval, right? It's going to be the smallest amount of time you can think of as now. I mean, even physically on the quantum level, there's smallest moments of time. But, really for a human mind, it's going to be more like the reaction time. I mean, the smallest now is what's happened in the last bit of reaction time. Okay, a reaction time ago. So, that's going to be an interval. And this is part of what I talked before about the mistakes of mathematics and thinking that, lines are made of points, and in calculus we discovered they're made of little tiny intervals. So even if it's going to be a teeny tiny infinitesimal, idealized interval, it's still an interval. So that's what now is. Now I think how the more narrow the interval that is your now, your current now, the more intense your feelings are. Uh, the longer they are, um, the more qualified they become. And often when we say live in the now, we're really just talking about living in this day, like from the morning until we currently are. Like imagine you're gonna go water skiing. You really love this. So in the morning you get up and you're riding, on the back of a truck to go to the lake, and right then you might be living in the future. It might be a good idea to live in the future because you're about to go have a lot of fun. Then when you're out there actually riding, you want to live at the moment, but that's not like literally at the moment. You're like where am I? How did I get here? What am I doing on a lake? You're like living from the morning until that current point. You know what you're doing, your activity, your now is that. You don't want to stretch it too far in the future. You don't want to be thinking about the next time you get to do a run. You want to be thinking about this time, and that's what people really mean when they talk about living in the now, is keeping your focus appropriate to the context, which will always include now, but it's a matter of how big of a now. And the key to figuring out when to change this is the intense feelings thing. You're going to have more intense feelings if you have a really narrow now. Children have a very narrow sense of now, and they react just a lot more to a small amount of pain and things like this. Because having a broader attitude helps. When you're skiing and then you wreck and you're in the water waiting for the boat to come around, you're not just like, I'm living in the now and it's a wreck and it's all bad. No, it's like then you're living in the future again. You're about to get back up. You're preparing yourself for the future so that you can line up so the boat can pull you in the right direction. And you are thinking about the future. And handling your now includes that, because the future, when you think about it, becomes a part of your now. That's really what's going on. And they're talking about living the now is like, well, don't be too distracted by the future. Don't be too distracted by the past, because the future and our hopes and desires or worries can plague us. And in the past, basically baggage. We can get baggage, positive baggage, even you could call it, where maybe we're really high on ourselves and we need to be focusing a little harder. So it is good to know how to release yourself, but it's not really just focusing on the now. You're narrowing that interval down to whatever is immediate. And if you're cruising along in one kind of activity versus, say, an emergency, what is an appropriate size for that interval changes. And that's really what we would be discussing, that in certain circumstances, maybe it's good to have a narrow sense of now, and others a broad one. And that's the more sophisticated thing I would like to discuss when discussing, living in the now. But cheers.